Taking you on a ride through this virtual reality and summing up the news of the day, I'm Alex Ansary, the debut edition of a whole new segment to come to this YouTube channel, The Alex Ansary Show, or rather, The Alex Ansary Daily Matrix Nightly Newscast. I'm Alex Ansary. Thank you for joining me on this January 4th, 2017. Happy New Year broadcast, and we are going to be covering a lot of news in this particular video. One of the things that I'm going to be doing is consolidating my news reporting into one video per day, or one video every couple days. There's several websites that I manage, and I will be, of course, leaving links down below where you can find the stories that I'm going to be covering. So we're going to be covering a lot of different news, from politics to future soldiers to solar flares to the Chinese and corruption in Oregon, trying to, buy off the current mayor that's just been elected, Ted Wheeler. We have a lot of very important stories that I'm going to be summarizing in a short period in time. If you'd like to contribute, of course, visit alexansary.tv/donate. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. That's right, 24 stories that we are going to cover. And so now it begins. There is a minor storm watch for the 4th and 5th of January. This is, of course, from spaceweather.gov or swpc.noaa.gov. A G1 minor geomagnetic storm is in effect for the next 2 days. A recurrent polar connected negative polarity coronal hole high-speed stream is anticipated to rotate into an Earth influential position by the 4th of January. Elevated solar wind speeds and a disturbed interplanetary magnetic field is forecast due to the CHHSS. These conditions are likely to produce isolated periods of G1 storming beginning late on the 4th of January, continuing to the 5th of January, on and so far. There's also spaceweather.com. Someone messaged me on Facebook and said, Alex, what websites do you recommend for tracking solar activity? And those are the two, spaceweather.com and spaceweather.gov. But you will not find others that talk about the human response. In fact, some people get moody. Some people get a little bit more energetic. So it has a perceived positive or negative effect, this solar radiation. And so when we talk about this, when people like myself talk about the links between human behavior and solar flares, we're not blaming anything on the sun. In fact, I think you can actually use the solar flares to your benefit. As a lot of people focus on, astrology and the full moon, I think there's a lot more for people to learn about the sun. And if you're new to my work and new to this channel, check out my work on the sun and the cycles of war. Going now to another story, and this is from August 31st, 2016. And the headline is, a Chinese company donated thousands of dollars to Oregon candidates. Was that illegal? So I'm pulling up a story that's 5 months old. Why? Because it needs coverage, because it's an important story. When I talk about America for sale, when I talk about how our own misleaders, elected officials, are taking money from China, I'm not making this up. This is not fake news. Now, is there fake news out there to kind of send you in the wrong direction? Absolutely. But are things like this very important to watch as we see Wheeler later become the mayor? In fact, today is his first day as the new mayor of Portland. And I believe Portland is a very strategic place. We talked about these potentials of a false flag to occur in Portland. I shared with you Clyde Lewis's prediction. I also shared with you, this information about Top Off 4. I remember filming Ted Wheeler, one of the only independent media figures at this anti-terror drill in 2007. Oh yeah, while they had a war game up in aerospace. Tell you it was creepy. And I remember filming the face of Ted Wheeler, and they looked back at me like a robot, like an archon, like a cyborg. And I was like, whoa, it was chilling. I mean, the guy doesn't look like physical, dangerous. Most of you probably could take him. You know, if you were in an argument, you were arguing about politics, and the guy threw a swing, wouldn't it be very difficult to take Ted Wheeler to the ground? But the evil in his eyes, feeling that he represented something big that would later come to the Pacific Northwest. That's the feeling that I got from the current mayor of Portland. So, you know, that guy that you've seen, Keith Davis. Thank you, Keith, for all the great information. Keith has been chastising the former mayor of Portland, Charlie Hales, who just now stepped down. So these people don't care about being reelected. They come in now sometimes just for 4 years. It's not about being reelected. It's about fulfilling their agenda and why they've actually been selected. And it's not just the national candidates, folks, that are selected. When we look at the mayors of Portland, we see a long line, a succession of selections. My opinion, Americans should be more informed about things like this. Let's get to the article. This is from Willamette Week. 4 years ago, American Pacific International Capital cast a long shadow over Portland. Literally, the Chinese-owned investment company's holdings included the 35-story Coin Center skyscraper. For those that are familiar with Portland skyline, it looks like a little pyramid building, orange. Very noticeable if you're familiar with Portland. So the Chinese-owned investment company's holding included, wow, that building and the Oregon Pacific building. And I believe that that is down in, the 5-story downtown building that once housed the Greek cuisine. Former council member, I forget his name, had that cuisine shut down. Kind of a crazy place on the weekends. The American Pacific International Capital, or APIC, this is that Chinese company, also made attempts at affecting other aspects locally, and that would be politics. From 2010 to 2012, Oregon campaigns and politicians, including Ted Wheeler, Charlie Hales, that would be the former mayor, Tobias Reed, and John Kitzhopper, that's the mayor. I remember talking about him saying Oregon is open for sale, and likening that to somebody like slapping their ass going, our ass is open for sale, come fuck it. I mean, you know, sorry to get, dirty with you, but I mean, Oregon is open for sale. The Pacific Northwest, I said this years ago, has its legs wide open and is acting in a very naive, vulnerable manner as our economy gets ready to melt down in various aspects. Not tomorrow. I'm certainly not predicting that. I also have some words later on the broadcast towards those that are, promoting fake news and fake disasters. But you're getting the real news here, and a lot of people, false Islamic invasion, white genocide. Folks, I mean, this is literally the encroachment into your nation's sovereignty. And it ain't the Muslims, it's Chinese companies. And your misleaders, let's see what Trump actually does to block this. Does Donald Trump have anything to say about China giving the Portland mayors money? Yes or no? So, those are the things that I want you to think about, especially those of you that believe the man's legit. And I appreciate you listening, if in fact that is your political persuasion. Everyone's going to be welcome in this newscast, and I'm going to try to keep some of my more hardcore, hardline beliefs, and some of my ideas on the sideline and just keep going from headline to headline. But this is rather significant. The company, this Chinese company, has since moved to San Francisco and sold its Portland holdings, but political contributions now faced renewed scrutiny thanks to federal elections complaint, and it alleges that APIC. So let's remember this, APIC. Yeah, you know me, it's the APIC. Yeah, we're all having a house party. The APIC, Chinese company, right, influencing local elections, or local public officials, for whatever reason, they're giving them the money. This is being done in plain sight, as America is for sale. And so it's been alleged that this company, APIC, has violated a federal law that prohibits foreign nationals from making campaign contributions. Again, this is allowed by Clinton. This is allowed by Bush. This is allowed by Obama. This will continue to be allowed by Trump. The complaint filed August 10th with the Federal Election Commission claims that APIC violated these rules when Chinese nationals on the APIC board decided to donate $1.3 million to Right to Rise USA, the super PAC supporting Jeb Bush in 2016. And of course, they also report on things where it makes it seem like they're behind one particular candidate when in fact there's another agenda. And so I'm going to be leaving the links down below. This is a big, big story. Get it out there. Also, things to mention along those lines. The Chinese purchase of the largest skyscraper in Seattle. Also, other major buildings. Major building in which the presidents used to stay in New York City. And so the presidents apparently aren't going to stay there anymore because of the Chinese ownership, or at least that's what I heard. But I wouldn't be surprised to hear about Donald Trump having a cozy relationship with the Chinese behind the scenes, despite the fact that it looks like this selection is going to take us to war. And with that, let's start talking about the Donald Obama, Donald. Oh. You know that character from Mad as Hell TV. Oh. From the Washington Post, Trump to tap Wall Street lawyer Jay Clayton to head the SEC. That's right. President-elect Donald Trump announced on Wednesday that he will nominate Wall Street lawyer Jay Clayton to head the Securities and Exchange Commission as chair of the SEC, which policies Wall Street in the financial market. Clayton would play a key role in Trump's efforts to usher in a period of deregulation and create undoing parts of 2010's financial reform legislation known as the Dodd-Frank Act. We're going to move forward a little bit more quicker, as we're actually going to cover more news, not less. More for the price of one. Donald Trump backs Julian Assange over Russia hacking claim. But then we have this other report that, did he call for his execution or for him to be imprisoned? Something to that effect is also on the newswire. The internet is shut off at the moment, as I have all of my news actually lined up before me. But yes, Donald Trump has actually called for Snowden to be executed. So they're like these people with a cognitive dissonance that I've talked about with Kyle Reardon in our Liberty Intelligence Files podcast. And if you haven't listened to our particular podcast where we're just breaking down the Trump worship, even for those of you that support, listen to the points that we're making with an open mind and understand we're not of the left. We didn't vote for Clinton. Is there, no freedom left in this country to have an independent view? And that's when I ask those that claim that you have an independent view. I claim that you should, I suggest, I ask, I beg. I request officially in a document, literally signed to my blood, that you, with an open mind, if you claim you have one, listen to every single one of the podcasts with myself and Kyle Reardon. And especially listen to the ones where I'm calling Donald Trump as the president before it actually happens. And warning that he is a dark horse coming in on a white horse. Oh, the hero, like a messiah, like what we've seen before. And he'll later lead us into a conflict with China. Now we have this talk about China being angered at Trump, saying, do not cross this red line with Taiwan. As right on cue, right before the guy even gets a chance to go into office, he's calling foreign leaders. And see, when I bring up certain criticisms, be able to hold yourself back from assuming that I am with the Clinton camp. Because if you cannot do that, well, I don't know what else to say. I would say enjoy your stay while you're listening to this podcast. And check out the information and realize in the end that this is not fake news. That this is not liberal news. That when you look into my background and the other things that I talk about, go back and see what I was talking about 3 or 4 years ago. Or 5 years ago. Check out my Wizard of Oz video, mocking those that are going somewhere over the rainbow. Obama's gonna fix everything. Daddy's gonna make it okay. As I talked about Obama basically doing the foreplay before he continues the fucking of America once Bush started the rape. All Trump is, in my opinion, is a continuation. So the left liberals in Portland, you know that they labeled me right wing when I talk like this to them. So think twice, brother and sister, before thinking that you're listening to the enemy. This is not the enemy, but I am broadcasting deep behind enemy lines. So for what it's worth, we will keep you up to date on the latest things taking place. Donald Trump backs Julian Assange over Russia hacking claim. Now look at all those people that you might also consider to be on the left, supporting Assange all these years. How real is Assange? Even people that have been promoting Assange and promoting Trump have asked themselves, is Assange even real? No, seriously. They've actually brought up imperfections in the video, in the interview with Assange and RT. I know that Christopher Green of AMTV has done that. And people ought to be asking those kinds of questions. Is Assange even alive? What's the real proof? Knowing that there's technologies out there that are able to mimic reality so well. So this is from the BBC News, today's news. Mr. Assange said Russia was not the source for the site's mass leak of emails from the Democratic Party. And look at people are like worshiping this Assange, like Assange says, Assange this, and Trump tweets. And I've warned about this Twitter apocalypse years ago. You know, how people are building this into their language as this constant infomercial for Twitter. So-and-so tweeted. So-and-so on Twitter. I don't care. Why Twitter? Why? Mr. Trump has now backed that view in a tweet. He wrote, Assange said Russians did not give him the info. The president-elect has repeatedly refused to accept the conclusions of the U.S. intelligence community. Several U.S. agencies, including the FBI and the CIA, believe Russia directed hacks against the Democratic Party and the campaign of its presidential candidate, Hillary Clinton. The information released through WikiLeaks and other outlets was intended to help Mr. Trump win the election, says the FBI and CIA. Let me just say this. If you're not going to believe the FBI and CIA with regards to the Russian hacking claims, why do you bend over backwards and spread it and cough when they say be afraid and jump when they say so, when they say that terrorists hit you on 9/11 or that terrorists hit you in California? You either believe or you don't believe the FBI. Oh, you either trust the media or you don't trust the media. Okay, you either like the media or you don't like the media. It seems people like to, go back and forth. Ford cancels Mexican plant but is still moving small car production. NBC News. Ford Motor Company announced Tuesday that it scrubbed plans to build a new $1.6 billion assembly plant in Mexico, a project that has been spotlighted by then candidate Donald Trump, especially after Ford said it would move small car production from the U.S. into that new factory. By the way, is Donald Trump completely free market? He says this company can do this. Okay, free market, huh? Free market. How free market is Donald Trump? Going back to the article, while the move is being hailed by some as victory for the president-elect, a closer look at the announcement made by senior Ford executives at the suburban Detroit assembly plant did not actually reverse the central decision of the automaker. Okay, so all this is going to be very, very interesting on the topic of jobs. From Politico. Voters want Trump to concentrate on jobs. Is Donald Trump seriously concentrating on jobs and what will really make us prosperous in the end? Or is there a little bit of gambling going on in this casino of sorts that we're living in? This casino economy. Voters want Trump to focus on bringing back manufacturing jobs from overseas and preventing more jobs from leaving the country when he takes office later this month. Oh, but of course there's people out there just saying, oh, no, there's no way they're going to let him be the president. Oh, no. They're going to kill him. They're going to find some way to bring in Hillary. Or they're going to pull the Electoral College. Newsflash, Donald Trump has won the Electoral College. That conspiracy now can be closed. That part's done. That part is done. There really should be a documentary of all those people like predicting that Donald Trump will not become the president after he becomes the president, just to shame them. Oh, it will be done. I will lead the way. I will lead my people. While the Pied Pipers are leading you here and there. And I'm so glad those of you are keeping an open mind and getting something from this information. There's a lot of people, I tell you, that need to be unplugged, that think that they're taking the red pill, but in reality have taken the blue pill. A new political survey reveals less enthusiasm for some other major Trump proposals during last year's presidential campaign, including building a wall on the U.S.-Mexico border or restricting Muslims from entering the country. I tell you what, I want a wall on my property. I'll tell you what, I'm not worried about Muslims or Hispanics. I'm concerned about the people locally that might want to take what I've got. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm all about having a wall. As far as the wall on the border, you know damn well this is about keeping Americans in once they start occupying this country. This is where this goes. We'll just continue moving on. They want jobs. Why don't we take a pause here before we go to the next one? Build our own jobs. Work for ourselves. Find ways of building residual income online. There's a lot of people out there that don't respect Americans, that work for themselves. Do you know why that is? They're jealous. There's some people out there that are angry that they're stuck at the factory jobs. So they get angry at others, or even those on YouTube that are able to raise money online or listen or support programs like this. In some cases where people donate $5 here or there. And I encourage you to become one of the several that are now donating for $5 to $10 to $20 a month. And if enough of you do that, it's going to enable me to really grow this show and grow this channel and grow my websites. And maybe even at one point have some staff, and maybe we can have a real studio. But before we even get to all that, first of all, we also vote with our dollars. So people are voting for candidates. What about voting for your dollars and pulling your money out of these multinational corporations and no longer eating at McDonald's and no longer just going to Walmart if you have an option of going somewhere else and not just giving in? Just voting for someone else and thinking that's, in reality, you're co-signing. You're basically saying you agree with what they're going to do. You may not agree with that. That's how I and others see it. So those that voted for Obama, are they responsible? Yes or no? Does the same standard apply to Trump supporters? Do you think that a lot of Trump supporters, in their own mind, though, see themselves up to the same standards? Do you, in some cases, even see the social justice warrior behavior from Trump supporters if they get angry that a restaurant won't paint a mural of Trump? If they painted murals of all the other presidents, they should paint a mural of Trump. Well, maybe if you're in North Korea, maybe in Soviet Russia, maybe in communist China, maybe in old Iran, but in the United States, well, how are we a free country if you're saying love it or leave it? That is not a free country. Okay. We have Donald Trump also picking other individuals like Elon Musk. There's going to be some big things going on in space, and I've been talking about this for years. There's something going on out there, even if they haven't made it to the moon and Mars. Many of you are skeptical of whether or not they're actually going to be able to, effectively use those billions, maybe even trillions. A lot of big elite money involved in space projects. How do you know that it isn't a ploy for something else? For those of you that have been suspicious of NASA, are you assuming that Donald Trump's just going to open up the books and Donald Trump to the rescue, Donald Trump disclosure? Well, Ashtar Command does say that he was sent by the Galactic Federation of Light, so people literally will believe anything. From the Scientific American, NASA should build a superhighway in space. And did not we just hear Obama say that the space race, the corporate space race, is on as China announces its goals to land on the moon and Mars by 2020, very concurrent with other privatized companies and Elon Musk? Do you see the international cooperation also between NASA, private companies, Elon Musk, China, Russia, and here we have Donald Trump, Elon Musk? Are you starting to see now Donald Trump's role in something big in space? May take you some time. I'll help you get there. From Scientific American, Donald Trump will take power any minute now, and we need to take advantage of the change in the White House to change NASA's focus. Why? NASA needs to get out of the rocket business and shift its attention to a permanent space transport infrastructure, an Eisenhower-style highway. Oh, are there going to be alien deals as well for the clones? An Eisenhower-style highway in the sky, an infrastructure with, they got a list here, gas stations, rest stops, and permanent housing. Roomy human habitats with windows and vegetable gardens. Yes, they're predicting the young for the world of space tomorrow. Oh, get ready to grow food on Mars. We're self-sufficient now. Self-sufficient astronauts. Yeah, but literally show me the evidence that humans can literally get beyond some sort of a radiation belt. And so what is the real plan? Because they are literally promising the children of today space tomorrow. Something's being planned. I would caution thee against being arrogant and saying all this is a hoax because you don't believe that they can get to the moon or Mars. Okay, can they get off planet? I think that part, unless you're a flat earther. This show doesn't cater to the flat earthers. They have to go somewhere else. And they're pushy motherfuckers. Trust me. They're arrogant, pushy motherfuckers. Oh, what are you, a globalist? That's right. You're a globalist. If you are not down with the Flat Earth OG society, secret society, you're with the globalists. But that aside, yes, I do believe that there is something more than the Flat Earth theory. I think people should be more concerned with what kind of a matrix this is and how do we get out of it. How do we help others, evolve beyond this. But this is a newscast. That's why you should subscribe and, of course, see my other videos. So we have Scientific American with gas stations, restaurants, trucks. Yeah, we're going to get there, folks. Fuel production equipment. We're going to air off grid. We're growing food. Trucks, SUVs, dune buggies, all this crap. Units to turn the carbon dioxide in Mars atmosphere into plastics. Carbon fiber to which 3D printers can build a more habitable tools and rovers. And, of course, imagery of Total Recall with the Governor, who's going to be on Celebrity Apprentice, fills the mind with all types of imagery. Units to turn the rusty rocks lying around the Martian surface into high-strength steel. High-strength steel for habitats. Jesus Christ, man. If they have access to this technology, why can't they really feed the world, make it a better place for you and for... Okay, so... moving on to the healthcare. Dun, 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 dun. Showdown over U.S. healthcare. Law looms. BBC News. President Obama is due to meet fellow Democrats in Congress to discuss how to protect the healthcare reform he instituted, often called Obamacare. The visit comes as President-elect Mike Pence also visited Congress to plan his party strategy to repeal and replace the law with Trump Care. No, it doesn't say that there, but we'll see what goes down. Notice there are people that are more concerned about their health care than the millions dead in the Middle East. Those that don't care about a genocide overseas don't give a damn about your health. I said the same about Barack Obama, and I will say the same about Donald Trump. Donald Trump criticized the law during his campaign, but later vowed to protect some elements. So what do you think? Do you think that there should be some sort of health care at all? What is your opinion? Or do you think that, everybody's teeth should just fall out? But of course, I'm not relying on dental care. I'm not relying on health care. I'm not asking anyone for health care. But funny how people's attitudes change once they get elderly and they start getting sick. Whether they are Democrats or Republicans, for they seek to live longer. And so the whole name of the game is to get your money, honey, once you get older. So there's nothing left. There's nothing left. You say, you got to take this pill. Stay alive a little bit longer. Use the machine. Use the machine. Extend your life. Why not preventing sickness to begin with? All right, we're coming up to the halfway point, and we are going to be taking a break in just a moment. Before we do that, Wall Street keeps gains after release of Fed minutes from Reuters. Wall Street held on to gains on Wednesday after minutes from the Fed's December meeting showed policymakers were concerned that quicker economic growth under Trump would require faster interest rate increases. U.S. stocks have surged, Bitcoin as well, over $1,000 per Bitcoin, 1,023. Last time I checked, a few days ago. Sure, it's somewhere else now. I'm sure you're going to tell me. U.S. stocks have surged over the past 2 months on expectations that Trump will stimulate the economy with tax cuts and infrastructure spending and eliminate regulations in the financial industry. I wish I had that soundbite to Mad TV. Lowered expectations. Check out the clip on YouTube. It's like a bad date with Donald Trump. But again, like with Obama, for the Trump lovers on the right, a little bit of foreplay before you get fucked. But sometimes people just like to get slapped in the face, and they like to get their hair pulled. They like to have that pussy grabbed. So each his own. Each his own. But yes, we have a stock market rally. Major things are going on with Wall Street. And a lot of people think that, living in America, good times are on the way. But in reality, it's looking more like a highway to hell. I'm Alex Ansary. We're going to be taking a break for about 3 minutes. And during this podcast, there'll usually be a break for 3 minutes featuring either royalty-free music, someone talking about something, or a clip of some video. Stay right there. There's more of this January 4th Daily Matrix nightly newscast coming your way. spiritual, political, and social commentary for the 21st century. I'm Alex Ansary. Welcome back to this January 4th, 2017. Make sure I'm saying 2017. Of course, we're in an artificial matrix reality. Better make sure that we're citing the proper artificial perception of time that we're in. Welcome, January 4th, 2017. We have more news that we are going to cover. Websites, by the way, alexansary.tv. And if you're new, make sure to subscribe to this channel. Also, share this broadcast newscast with others. I am open to syndication if you're a radio station. If you want to take this link, if you want to help out this show, you don't have to donate. You can actually take this link and you can actually send it to a radio station online or otherwise. And I think it's about time to do a 1 hour, potentially daily podcast, but we need to make sure that we can get it out there. But again, this is a news segment, and I'm condensing a lot of information in a fairly short period in time. So Ted Cruz is proposing term limits, and that is to one of such several resolutions filed as the 105th Congress gets to work. Now, notice how there was this whole Cruz versus Trump thing that they played up, and people think those are real debates. Those are not real debates. Ted Cruz has been positioned as well to play some role in all this. And he's seen as a lesser of evils with the right of the Republicans that weren't on the Trump train. And there's always been something very greasy, and it's not his father's background. It's funny how people keep trying to make this a foreigner thing. I mean, just look at the dude. The dude is like a caricature of, as I've heard some people say about him. So people don't scratch their head and go, wow, they really have a lot of clowns that are just, it's like, dun, 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 dun. It's a clown show. Sometimes with makeup, sometimes without makeup, but you look at them close enough, and it's really like looking at a wax museum. So when I saw Ron Paul bring out Ted Cruz in 2012, I shook my head because I knew right there and then there was a reason why the great Ron Paul did it. And he did it for Rand, so Rand could do what? And how effective has Rand actually been? And how much like Rand has he been compared to his father? Okay, well, you do Rand. Okay, well, what is this, some sort of a monarchy? Who gives a fuck then if he's your son? Is he like you? Has he been raging against the system like he should have all this time? I don't know. Let the audience be the judge. There's one thing, though, that the audience members can say about Alex Ansary. He does not get on the bandwagon. It doesn't matter what the bandwagon is. Ever since I was a kid, it was always about being different, being insusceptible. Even if people criticize me, it doesn't matter what it is. Even if it's martial arts and exercise and training, I'm unique in the things that I enjoy within those lines. When it comes to the things I talk about when I'm off the grid, the things that I think about, the type of books that I have, or even the types of news that I bring in this unique cocktail fusion of information delivered to you tonight, literally within an hour of me recording this. And I'll tell you what, despite the fact we're going to get into robots here, ooh boy, things are starting to heat up. We should use this technology to the best of our ability to impact the hive mind in a positive way. And those are my recommendations regarding solutions to the audience. Don't be afraid. Be bold. Speak the truth. Mighty forces of goodness will come to your aid. As we may really be like, fractals of this guardians of the earth consciousness, soul group family, a true from the ground up ground crew trying to awaken those so that others can see and free themselves. So from boing boing, when robots take the middle class jobs, and if we were talking about like, well, what would be like, in the top 10 stories of the year, boy, oh boy, with regards to robots for warfare and all this stuff is building, none of it's new, but it's like taking off, like, exponential. It's like, boom, major spike in just this grand awareness, major changes to humanity, changes to the military, changes to robotics. In disappearing routine jobs, who, how, and why, economists from USC, UBC, and Manchester University document how the automation of routine jobs, welders, bank tellers, etc., that pay middle-class wages has pushed those workers out of the job market entirely or pushed them into lower-paying, insecure employment. The study links the phenomena of unemployment with automation, an obvious seeming connection by establishing a causal relationship that goes beyond mere correlation. People stop working because robots take their jobs. Robots don't just co-occur with employment, they cause it. The share of American workers in routine jobs has fallen 40%. in 1970 to 31% in 2014. I wrote a short story based on the year 2035, I'm going to add, when I was in school in Virginia during that year in which I lived there. And it was about waking up, getting into a time machine, going back to Portland 2035 and being arrested for not having an identity card, waking up in a reality literally in a restaurant where the robots were making the food. And like Ray Bradbury's Pedestrian with the Mechanical Robot, I'm going to do a reading of that, by the way, and other literary readings on the channel. So subscribe for that. That's going to be coming in the next week or sooner. So it's like that science fiction, you know, sometimes you read about Ray Bradbury, The Pedestrian in school, or Fahrenheit 451, or 1984. So I was writing that really in the tradition of those futuristic novels. You know, and the robot arresting the human for being in a unauthorized zone or being a unidentified human, like a rat in the cage. Just like the Smashing Pumpkins song. From the Epoch Times, in other news, how the U.S. could win a trade war with China. And let me preface this. This is building the narration, the theater of war, conflict with China, and I called it. So there's going to be certain opinions from certain websites that lean towards promoting some Pentagon talking points. And so I think it's important to narrate this as these articles come out, to show you the evidence that this war with China is building. And an economic war with China will turn into a physical war. And a lot of people are overlooking the amount of money that we have, that we owe China, and how China could destroy us militarily and economically. And they've really overlooked the potential that this is actually being orchestrated by the global government. So we could see how Alex Jones and others are co-opted, whether knowingly or unknowingly. They are not covering things from this perspective, but they will later, I hypothesize and speculate, lead their listeners into a battle with China or others in which they are slaughtered, essentially. It's not so much that Alex Jones directly serves China, he serves that which controls the New World Order, and that has become obvious to me in my opinion. So his agenda will be to physically now that he's co-opted the minds of his listeners, to keep him on the air, to actually physically co-opt their ability to resist. So watch where the Alex Jones endgame goes from here. From the Epoch Times, Trump talks tough. China, 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 China. And has appointed trade hawks Wilbur Ross and Peter Navarro to key positions in his administration. He's threatened to slap a blanket tariff on Chinese goods, and he's spoken directly to Taiwan's president. According to Road to Ruin, author James Rickens, this is Trump's way of opening the negotiations with China to reaching a mutually beneficial trade relationship. Yeah, this is all going to go fine. Trump is saying to China, here is where we're going to start. What have you got for us? Are you willing to be more flexible on foreign trade investment? Are you willing to treat U.S. companies in China more fairly? Are you willing to stop the theft of intellectual property? See, this is all the hallmarks of him being selected, and China knows this, to lead us into the stage-managed conflict. While China and the U.S. will continue to be friends, and Russia up in space, this is about sending the people to war. This is about nationalism building worldwide. As Trump becomes threatening to the people of China, as you will see in the next few years, you will see them mock Trump even more, and you will see the racism towards Chinese build with the Trump support. Well, fuck them, and blah, blah, blah. Well, you guys do this. Yes, but you guys talked about Clinton Foundation and China and Russia. Why not go deeper into that and go see how deep the rabbit hole goes with regards to U.S. corruption in China? I just gave you a great example at the beginning of the show. Is Trump going to be bringing that up? No, because he's a part of this agenda. Who else also has talked to you about Rick Perry, Bilderberger Rick Perry, and his connection to China? Look at Rick Perry now tied in with Donald Trump. Are you starting to see the picture? So we see headlines like this, we won't cover it all, that really is there to support Donald Trump in pushing China against the wall. You better watch out, because there's a knife in their hand and we gave it to them. Okay. I'm also going to make sure that I covered everything regarding this section at the moment. Nepal and China to hold first ever military drill. And this comes on the heels of another story of a war game with Russia, right as the Chinese aircraft carrier, I believe it's called the Liang. I need to get my Chinese enunciation down. But the critical point is that the aircraft carriers, in which I and only a few have warned you about, that China is building a massive aircraft carrier army, or infrastructure rather, the PLA, People's Liberation Army. People for years made fun of the Chinese. They'll never get to a certain point, and now you see they have the monopoly over certain things. They're in the Middle East. They're benefiting from U.S. occupation in the Middle East, and we owe them money. China's always played a role, and they are directly connected with Israel, even though they act like they might go to war also on other levels. It's all sleight of hand. So as you see China expand in Africa, as you see even discussions about, oh, maybe China should be involved in Syria too. No, China was not dispatched officially in China, but the disinformation in the alternative media suggested so. And the reason why you see disinformation about China and Russia, disinformation threat articles, they're on the border, the Stephen Quell nonsense, the David Hodges Common Sense Show bullshit. And notice how they all link to each other. It's to distract you from the real China threat news, Russia threat news, the real things that are going on. Did you know that there are Chinese police trained in Leak City, right outside Houston? They're literally training Chinese police, folks, in the United States. Years ago, people would freak out about the idea of troops being trained, foreign troops. Now things have become a little bit more relaxed. I've reported also on Facebook and this channel in the past about U.S.-China drills as well in Hawaii. This is increasing. It's also increasing the natural disaster drills. So they're preparing for a U.S.-China joint response to earthquakes. And we had Russians training in 2012 in Colorado, Special Forces. And where are they going? They're going after domestic terrorists in that drill. So people aren't scratching their head going, wait a minute. Wait. Aren't aspects of our own government calling the conspiracy theorists terrorists or dissidents? Or were you sleeping? Or were you thinking that all this Patriot Act and whatnot built by Bush would just be signed away by Donald Trump? You really have gambled the whole house on the stewed. Some of you haven't you? Well, Uncle Alex is going to help bring you to sanity. Going now from politics to geopolitics, let's talk about the reality of living in Portland. Portland, very popular, made very popular by the TV show Portlandia. Hypothermia kills man sleeping outside a blanket in Portland. And so you have more people homeless than ever. Widespread discrimination. Oh, they're just drug addicts. People not even taking into account the amount of people made homeless by the sharp increase in rents. We see stories about rent doubling in some areas in America from $600 to $1,200. Importantly, talk about 90-day law. So a landlord has to give 90 days before immediate no-cause eviction or rent increase. Why is that? Because Portland's on fire. Portland's on fire with popularity, and it's not over yet. Its livability has plummeted, but it's still going to be popular because of the real reason, the real causal factors regarding what the hell is happening to the rest of America. When people think that's sustainable and that's green and that's progressive, for everybody to live in a place like Portland and not have feelings when people literally die in the streets. I see this, and this is periodic. This happens every year. People just don't understand. Our society is not trying to help the homeless. Our society is not coming to the aid of property rights, property owners that have their rights violated. There's no ACLU for the people of Costilla County. So they're pushed back out in the street. Go live in your RV, which is really a luxurious way to be home free. You're homeless without a traditional home. Most homeless don't have the RV and the Mr. Buddy heater. Most homeless don't have, a YouTube channel where they could speak their truth and also move forward because of their voice. Not everybody can just experience the homeless thing like me for a year and bounce back from living in your vehicle and literally create your own path and eventually end up off the grid owning your own land, which I'm making payments on. So all the donations come in, folks. Help make up those payments and help me maybe pay it off in the next year instead of 4 years so I can live debt-free after this year. You can help me do that. I am literally a success story, and I will speak on behalf of those that are victimized and those men that are left out literally in the street to die. Because sometimes it's not just about the rent. It's about the fact there are no jobs. Some areas, they prefer that pretty ass that people just want to salivate over. And the reality is, this is what Portland is like. And so there's contributing factors. We look at this, 15 arrested in Southeast Oregon, sex trafficking sting. It's not just about Portland. It's about what's happening to our nation in this desire for the flesh and worship of the flesh. Sometimes in the worship of the flesh, bad things happen. Authorities in Southeast Oregon say 15 people have been arrested in connection with a undercover sex trafficking operation, and that is the county. By the way, how do you think they found out about so many kids being trafficked out of Portland? It was a federal investigation. Portland themselves, as Keith Davis has pointed out, hasn't even been able to nip that in the bud. The city of Portland. So we've seen some major things regarding that. And it keeps coming back down to, how will Portlanders be affected if there's ever a world war with China? And then again, this is kind of abstracted. We jump around sometimes. I echoed Clyde Lewis's 2009 warning regarding a false flag in Portland, citing Operation Blackjack, which came out 2006, 2007, showed multiple false flag terror attacks on June 22nd. No year specified, but it literally leading us into the New World Order. We look at Top Off 4. Top Off 4 had a simultaneous drill. So on the ground, it was all about, a drill to prepare us for Al-Qaeda taking out the Still Bridge. Up in aerospace, Google Vigilant Shield, response to China and Russia. War games. That's what I was talking to Michael Chertoff about. Find my video on Top Off 4. My name in Top Off 4, Michael Chertoff. There it is. Yours truly, the man that you're listening to now, in 2007, asked former head of Homeland Security in a press conference drill, Michael Chertoff, when are the American people going to be told that these drills are really about preparing for world war, not Middle Eastern terrorists? And they said, we don't talk about the different drills. We're here to talk about this drill and only this drill, and that's it. In fact, they're even saying that at the press conferences. We're only here to talk about this drill. They want you afraid of Middle Eastern immigrants as they prepare the cage for you, your children, and your grandchildren. Going back to the Chinese military recruitment video features East China Sea air encounter with Japan. A promotional recruitment video released by China's People's Liberation Army draws attention to China's ongoing disputes with China in the East China Sea. The 5-minute video viewable below this article notably contains footage of an aerial encounter between a Chinese PLA Air Force fighter and Japanese Air Self-Defense Force. This is heavy propaganda. I heard there was also a video where it was like rap. They were using rap and hip-hop to promote recruitment. Something big is taking place with China and their military. And I'm on record since at least 2008 warning about a potential occupation, and actually citing the amount of dreams and visions that some people have had with regards to this and the West Coast being invaded. And I've added in my 2 cents that I'm concerned about human trafficking and white slavery even to follow. And so I'm going to keep coming back to my warnings as we go over the news, because that is the point of going over some of these things. I'm seeing nothing but confirmation that this is the in-game agenda, to create a conflict in which the world leaders are actually organizing the positioning and the movements and the strategy of the militaries, to where the generals themselves are compartmentalized, that they will be in control of what they're able to be in control over. None of them control the entire military. It's so compartmentalized. And aspects of the military are becoming more and more robotic. And it came out years ago, and I'll go over the article in depth in a future podcast. China has the technology by design to hack the robot army. And so a major co-opting of the American military is coming. I think that they're going to dispatch more troops to Middle Eastern countries. And when they plan the invasion, the most amount of U.S. troops may be in foreign countries to make us that much more weaker. That's what I've always speculated, and that's what I see to come. I'm looking out an article from Wired Magazine, because I'm going to make sure that I talk more about robotics and the military as we look at this in a multidimensional, multi-pronged, multi-perspective way. Soldiers of the future will be augmented and indestructible. With wound-healing smart fabrics and enhanced night vision, researchers are building the next generation of indestructible soldiers. Things like this, some of us used to focus on quite a bit. I know I talked about a lot of this stuff 10 years ago, and here I am in 2017, a full 12 years now after I got involved in the alternative media. And we are still alive, thank God, by the grace of God. And this is still a very serious issue. The robotic army that is coming, that is very vulnerable to hack, as I always add. And not everybody adds that. Not everybody that is worshiping this future robot army is seeing the real potential of the hack in light of all this data security news. In 2017, the U.S. Department of Defense, DoD, will launch the Tactical Assault Light Operator Suit, also known as Talos, a futuristic piece of military hardware that encloses soldiers within a bullet-bouncing, internally cooled, computerized exoskeleton. Ah, yes, there's that sexy word that I've been missing for so long, the exoskeleton. Inside the suit, soldiers will be shielded from almost every threat. So again, this is more worship of materialism, adding on my Gnostic take on this and worshiping of robotics and the machine will save you. Yes, but what if the solar flares, my pretty, when Kansas go bye-bye, deal with that machine. On that note, PGE works to restore power to more than 10,000 customers. There's a picture here I'm looking at. All the links will be down below. So people talk about the benefits of living in the grid, and the grid really is more vulnerable than ever. And yes, it's sad when we hear about people that, go cold, and people should be prepared. We are now concluding here with our last few podcasts, or articles rather. So for years, people have warned you about Project Bluebeam and the idea of the artificial alien invasion. William Cooper and others, myself. Earth to call ETs soon. And we're looking at this article from the Coast to Coast AM website in what may go down in history as either a silly exercise in futility or the cause of our enslavement to alien overlords. Scientists have announced plans to beam signals into space in an attempt to contact ETs. The project, dubbed Messaging Extraterrestrial Intelligence, is helmed by Douglas Volkov, a former member of SETI, and they call this METI, M-E-T-I. And they aim to send recurring messages to Proxima b, the Earth-like planet discovered earlier this year, in which the closest location yet to be found where life could possibly exist. And I mentioned in a previous video, there are people on the New Age side promoting the same thing, contacting alien beings without a honest discussion or disclosure regarding the archons. So James Gillen may talk about the archons, but he, like others, will say that the archons have been moved off planet. Having met James Gillen, who's also on Coast to Coast on a regular basis, I believe that the man is delusional. I believe he has an agenda. I've talked about what I've heard about him and women. I think that he, there are a lot of reasons why someone may go, you want to stay away from people that are just openly suggesting that you contact alien beings. And so in the New Age community, really, I think that you're dealing with people that are fronts for archons, even though some of you may not believe that, you may not believe that we are not alone in the universe. You may believe that we're alone. That's your opinion, and I have mine. So when I see certain people out there, I understand it's assumed that they're just simply con artists, but I wouldn't be so sure to assume that there is no deception on a more evil level. Especially when you have people that are very influential that are convincing millions of people to reach out and allow themselves to make contact with things they know nothing about without teaching them discernment first. And so from studying individuals like this, and especially with technology and how certain New Age lies have been promoted through YouTube and promoted through Google and other things, and a lot of people that are searching for the truth, they don't know any better. So they start channeling, and they start going certain directions, they start calling out to ETs, and they don't even realize that they're potentially being led into an archon or demonic trap. It's like Pandora's box. Now, we have Skywatch TV, the website of Tom Horn. I want to see what the latest was that he was discussing, and he's also bringing this to people's attention. Again, they claim they've discovered this planet, Earth-like planet, and I do believe that there are other Earth-like planets, and I don't believe that we're alone in the universe. But I believe they are hijacking the natural, organic, inquisitive nature to want to know and understand the cosmos and what's going on. And so when the governments that we can't really trust, are recreating a scene, predictive programming from the movie Contact with Jodie Foster, just a few years after even the Vatican, the Pope says aliens have souls like humans, they are preparing us for something. I'm also going to briefly be mentioning when there are people that try to mislead us into certain directions to keep us afraid. Author predicts Planet X will smash the Earth in October. I don't deny that we're alone in the universe. I think there are all kinds of objects going on out there. I think that a lot of the people that have gotten on the Planet X bandwagon don't have any clue what's really going on. And some of them almost seem to have an addiction to what we call fear porn. And so for anyone out there that's been a fan of some of these shows, the Dr. Deagle, Clyde Lewis, and some of the fringe YouTube videos, you know how many years they've been predicting the end as a result of Planet X. And I feel like I need to remind you of how long they've been predicting a cataclysmic event solely caused by this. And I'm not saying cataclysmic events may not be on the way with our Earth's magnetic field and increased solar flares and a big solar cycle coming. I'm telling you, they're going to be telling you that's the next projection. And it's what we're likely going to see, a big solar cycle. There's a lot of things that can happen when the Earth's magnetic field is weak, comets, asteroids, all that very real, but no one knows the day nor the hour. And so what you're really seeing here, this is David Mean. And oh yes, October. So what they do is they highly publicize stuff that's like a year away, and it builds and it builds and it builds and it builds and it builds. You know, in like an election, and even like, you know, the Ron Paul worship, even though his policies were good, some of them. It becomes like this way of redirecting our energies, our hopes, and our fears. And that's something that you should consider. This now completes one of the most action-packed podcasts, newscasts that I have produced in years. And I'm thinking about this being a regular segment. If this is something that you support, make a donation tonight. There's links down below in the description. No amount is too little. Let's say you want to donate $5 or $10 and you got nothing in your PayPal account. There's a website called Patreon. It only takes out a small little fee, very similar to PayPal. So if you don't have PayPal and you only have a card, I'll tell you what, if a couple of you donate at the same time, it makes all the difference in the world. Again, I'm thinking about this being a regular thing, and I'm creating, of course, breaks in the middle so people can get up during the middle of the show, leave this playing like a real live show, though we're not going to do this live, but I'm literally going to start editing this, producing this, and I'm going to try to have it go live tonight, maybe 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, maybe, you know, various times in the evening. But you could consider this, for now, your nightly news with Alex Ansary. And I thank you for listening. You know, there's a quote that I used to always leave my audience with in Portland, Oregon on cable TV. You know, those people channel surfing and watching actual local community, and that's actually where I got my start. It was Access TV in Portland. And it was a quote, really a Gnostic quote, before I even knew what Gnosticism either was. And it goes like this. I'm Alex Ansary, reminding you that the path to the ultimate truth and place of power still lies within. And folks, it truly does. Thank you for listening. Get this video out everywhere, and we'll see you in the next newscast.